Ladies and gentlemen, it's another episode of the What Now Show. Today we have joining us the head coach of Freestyle MMA, Joe Lopez. Joe, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining in, Joe. So, of course, there are a lot of things that have happened recently. There's been a lot of fights in the featherweight division. Your most notable fighter is actually the UFC featherweight champion, Alex Volkanovski. We'll get into all of that later. But for now, actually, I want something I've really noticed about you, Joe, is that when it comes to talking about MMA, or talking about your fighters, you've never really spoken about your role as the coach, but you've more talked about your fighters. So what I really want to get to know is what I really want to get to know more is about you, right? So what got you into MMA? What got you into starting up freestyle MMA in the first place?
I've been doing martial arts for probably 40 plus years. So um, I've always done it and always had it. I tried in the early days. I tried to get a couple of kickboxing fights, and they fell through. So then, instead of wasting my time, I started a security business, and from that, I built a successful company, and I had probably 100 plus guys work for me, and from that, I got to, how could I say, when I was 40 years old, I said to myself, I'm just wasting my time. I wasn't wasting my time. My life's going past, and all I'm doing is working, and I want to just take a backward step because I was successful, and I still do it. And I just got other guys filling in the roles that I used to play. And I wanted to do something that sort of made my security business successful, which was the martial arts. I wanted to give a little bit back from what I'd gotten,
Yeah.
And there I bought an old church, and I converted it into a gym, and it's 5 minutes from my house, and it was more of a lifestyle choice. And a good friend of mine said to me, said, what do you want to get out of this? And I said, well, I really, and this was back in the day when the UFC was very underground. It was only, martial artists that really were into it. And I said, I want to get somebody into the UFC. And that was my goal. And, come now, 10, 15 years later, I end up, getting somebody into the UFC,
Yeah, mission accomplished and more. So,
Yeah.
when it came to getting started into MMA, I mean, you've been doing it for 40 plus years. What really plugged that spark in you? What interested you in mixed martial arts in the first place?
Well, I think I first started, like anybody, I think I just wanted to learn how to defend myself. And then I just grew in love with it, and I've, with martial arts, there's always something to learn, and there's something different. And I really enjoy that part of it, That's why I like jiu-jitsu so much, because it's probably the most complicated martial arts out of all of them. There's, probably wrestling is probably the hardest on the body,
Yeah.
Mine probably, boxing, kickboxing, because, a lot of people don't like the thought of being punched, So they've all got something to play, but jiu-jitsu, as far as, for every move, there's a counter move. For every counter move, there's another counter move. And still evolving, I'm not saying the other martial arts, are easy, because they're all very complicated. But I enjoy just learning, and I still do. I love learning new things. And now, as I'm getting older, I can't do the things I want to do, but I can look at my fighters and I go, yes, this will work for you, that will work for you. And I like that aspect of it, I like the getting a raw guy or a raw fighter and turning him into a champion. I really enjoy that process, and it keeps me going at it,
Yeah, because what's really interesting to me is how you took a 215-pound rugby player, took him down to 145, and turned him into a UFC world champion. How did you break down someone like Volkanovski, and how did you turn him into more? he seems to be like, from his fighting style, he has this aggressive approach where he pushes the pace around 1 through 5, and he still manages to keep the same tempo. He doesn't slow down. And rather than just the sheer grit it takes to make it through those 5 rounds with that pace, the amount of cardio and conditioning it would take to go through is crazy. So how do you work with someone like Alex and get him to cut so much weight, still keep that same power and work through like that?
Well, one of the principles I instill in everybody is that, you know, you know, cardio or fitness is the mother of all techniques, because you can have the best technique in the world, but if you get tired, the weakest person will beat you, And so my number one thing is, before anybody wants to fight, they've got to be fit. And then everything else comes with it. I don't let guys spar unless they're fit, because you get hurt. It's so fitness has always been a big part of the way we train at our gym. And we get a lot of people come from all over the place, and they can't believe, the way the guys at our gym, work, because we work a lot on scrambles. Like we work to a schedule, and each day we work a certain part. Maybe in the morning we might do technique. In the afternoon, they might do jiu-jitsu, and then they might wrestle afterwards.
Right.
And to me, then I'll watch them spar, and then I'll break it down. I'll say, Johnny needs to work on, his head movement. This guy needs to work on his scrambling from the bottom. This guy needs to work on because we're all different, and what works for you might not work for you, for me. So it's even though it's an individual sport, it really works as you need that team environment. The other thing I do is I've got these certain drills we do. We do the spider drill. I do the meat grinder. We do like shark. And what I get out of that is I like to get the guys really tired, and then I see where their holes are, because when you're fresh, anybody can perform good, or if you're not tired. So I get them tired, and then I see where they're weak, and then I build on those weaknesses.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy from City Kickboxing about the spider drill. It's probably one of the most unique concepts when it comes to training the fighter. Get them tired and then see where they can build from there. Different rounds, different situations. It really keeps the person prepared, so to say. So when it
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
so yeah.
it's something that you only do in fight camp. And it's not only a physical thing, it's a real mental thing as well, because when you're dead tired and people are pushing you to move, you build a certain mental strength, and then when you finish, you've done it, and then you can, like they say, the training is the hard part, the fighting is the easy part.
Yeah, because you have to prepare all of that just to be prepared for any of those situations in the fight. So you have to be ready for a lot more different things going into the fight in the first place. So when it comes to, let's say, getting a fighter, because you deal with multiple fighters on multiple levels, from prize fighters to just pros and amateurs and people who are just starting out, right? So how do
Yes.
you break down each of these fighters in your own gym and decide that, that like come to the conclusion that this fighter should be better working on a jiu-jitsu, or one should be better working on his kickboxing? How do you have an approach towards each fighter like that?
Well, it's just watching them, and just like I said, I get them tired and I see where they're weak, and then I try and improve those weaknesses so they get better. You got guys like Alex, they're very unique, where they've got a very strong work ethic. I've got another young guy who's probably going to head in the same direction there, where I have to tell them to slow down. They get injuries and they want to keep training, and I have to say no. Like one of them now has got a sore back, he's got a back injury, and he still comes to the gym every day, you know, and I have to tell him, no, you can't train.
Yeah.
But they're there and they watch, and I just give them other exercises to do that. They can work around their injury, but I have to put a handbrake on them because they'll just
Trying to
keep
aggravate it.
They've got that drive to win, and they've got that drive that they want to succeed. And, you know, that they're rare, but then you've got just the average guy who wants to just test himself, you know, the guy that just wants to have that one fight and tick it off his bucket list. And at the end of the day, there's room for everybody, you know, because you can learn from everybody, you know, and the more people you've got to spar, the better it is for everyone, you know. And for me, it's like, and I've been to gyms and trained at gyms where they just get their star like Alex, and they pamper him and tell him everything he wants to hear, where I'm the opposite. I treat everybody the same, and I tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And some people don't like that. I've lost a lot of people because they want to go to a gym where, you know, they get patted on the back and get told how good they are. I'll tell them when they're good, and I'll tell them when they're bad. I'll tell them what they're doing wrong, and I'll tell them, if you don't want to listen, it's up to you, you know. I'm not saying it because I like the sound of my own voice. I'm saying it because I want to make it better. But if you don't want to do it, there's the door. See you later. I don't care, you know.
That makes perfect sense, to be honest. When it came to, like, let's say, for example, because you've dealt with a lot of fighters, right? You've lost a lot of fighters. You've gotten a lot of fighters for the gym. When it came to starting out freestyle MMA at first, and, you know, it expanding over time, how arduous was the process of, you know, getting multiple people? And once you've expanded as a gym and you have people coming in regularly, what's an average day in the life like?
Well, at the beginning, it was hard. Look, when Alex first came down, we had like a team meeting. I had a couple of fighters and a few guys that approached me and said that they wanted to fight as well. And in those days, I used to have like a team meeting, and we'd say, okay, these are the shows. Who wants to fight on what show? And we'll say, look, the way we're going to get ahead is we're going to get ahead as a team, you know. And as Alex got better, I found that a lot of the guys wouldn't show up to training. You know, like his first 2 UFC fights, I was probably one of his main sparring partners because guys wouldn't show up. And that's where we made the point that, you know, I'm an old man, you know, he needs young men, you know, to train with, you know. And I was quite honest. I said, man, my body's not going to be able to keep taking this, you know. You know, I can spar light, but when it comes to the bit harder training, my body is just, I can't fight Mother Nature, you know. It's just getting there.
Is that what got you to work with City Kickboxing for Alex, you know, sending him for camps over there? You know, because a lot of people to work with.
Yeah, well, a lot. It all started with Tiger, like, and that was before Alex got into the UFC. One of the guys, Brian Ibisol, he was one of the head trainers at Tiger, and he told me about the tryouts. And I suggested to Alex, if he wanted to get ahead, you know, it'd be better that he went over there where he had a lot more bodies and a lot more people to train with. And at one stage there, when he left, you know, he got the 12-month scholarship over there. I thought he'd never come back. You know, he'd get with those guys. And to my surprise, you know, when his fight came up, you know, he left Tiger, and the last 2 weeks he came back and trained with me. And like he'd learn a whole lot of things, and then I'd come down and he'd say, you know, I used to say it was like he'd come back as a rough diamond, and he wanted to come to me to polish it so it'd look good for fight day, you know. And it was a compliment to me because I thought, you know, why would he want to keep training with me when he's got UFC, ex-UFC fighters as coaches and all these other world-class athletes, and he still, you know, had the loyalty and I guess he believed in me as a coach that I had his best interests at heart, and I wanted him to become a champion, you know. And I do that with all the fighters. You know, I'm a bit, you know, now since Alex is the world champion, now we've got, I mean, pre-COVID, you know, I had people from all around the world come and train with us. people wanting, you know, I was getting emails, you know, Facebook messages, Instagram messages of guys from all around the world wanting to come and train with us. And from Tiger days, a lot of when we'd go there, because every camp I'm with Alex, you know, it's not that he goes there by himself, I'm with him. A lot of the guys, when you're getting close to a fight, you've got to be very picky on who your training partners are, because you don't want them to have the ego that they want to hurt you. You want them with the same attitude as you, that they want to help you get better. And a lot of those guys were Kiwi guys. We had American guys. We had guys from England. They were all, but a couple of the guys that we got really close to were, you know, New Zealanders, and then they left Tiger and they went back to New Zealand, and they all started training at City Kickboxing. And, you know, it was just, it just made sense for us to go over there, you know. We sort of built a bond when we fought in New Zealand. I think it was his second or third fight, and his second fight. Yeah. We sort of a bit of a relationship with Eugene. Then when we couldn't get an opponent for Alex for the Sydney show, we sent out a message to them. So because I think in 2 weeks they'd given us 5 or 6 different opponents, and we were looking at, and at that stage, you know, Alex was at the beginning. He wasn't making much money. Yeah. He had a baby, he had a house to pay off, he was living at his mum's. It was a hard time for him. And we had to, you know, it was so different to what it is today, you know. So he had to fight. So we got Eugene. They ended up getting us Shane, and we fought Shane. And from there we built a close bond, and then we started, you know, doing part of our camps over there, you know.
Yeah. So let's say when it comes to deciding camps, right? Because of course, the whole system is that, you know, Alex trains with you from day to day, and then he does his final training camp at City Kickboxing. So when it comes,
well, we do it in stages, you know. So he might go over for 2 weeks at the beginning of the camp, then he'll come back here for the 4 weeks, and then he'll go there for the last 2 weeks. Like the last camp we didn't have that privilege because of COVID. So we did the whole camp at our gym, you know. I reached out to a whole heap of there was a couple of UFC guys and a couple of local fighters, and they all came down. They moved down. We formed a little bubble, and we just trained. You know, we got government permission to train. So there was a big process to get the whole thing happening. It was a very short camp. I think it was like 5 weeks. And for an opponent like Max, you know, you really want your 8 weeks, you know. Yeah. But we did it, and we came back with a win, and that's all that counts.
Yeah, you had a very, of course, we know about the game plan you had in the previous fight, in the first Max fight. What was your game plan going into the second fight? And because something I really noticed was how you all worked off of something you saw in the first fight, which was the leg kicks. The leg kicks is something that was a very unique part of that game, because it wasn't just the fact that you used it so often, but the way you found the openings for them, you know, pushing the pace, and as soon as you get the opportunity, when he strikes in and when he's moving back and the leg kick strikes, it was really having that level of impact on Max. You could see how messed up Max's leg was after the fight. So was that really the game plan?
I think my game plan was a little bit different, to be honest. He sort of started playing my game plan towards from round 3 on, where he started to look for the takedown. That was my initial game plan. But, you know, the boys felt that he should play the same game. But Max wasn't stepping back like he was in the first fight, you know, and that's why Alex was catching him a lot more. And so, well, if you look at it, well, Alex draws you to one side and it opens up the other side, and then he hits you on that side, you know. But Alex's real strength is, and it has been from day one, is he's got a lot of forward pressure. And unless you've, like I say to people, unless you've been in front of him when he's doing that forward pressure, you don't understand how it drains you, because you don't know if he's going to take you down or he's going to hit you. So that mentally, it really draws you out, and it drains your battery. You know, I've experienced it, and I've seen him do it to many people. And I really wanted him to go back to that type of that game, you know, because it really gets, especially with a short camp that we did. I thought we could have drained Max, got him tired. And look, if people are worried about the takedown, it opens it up for the punches or the kicks or whatever, you know. It gives you one more thing to be worried about, you know.
Yeah, because that was a very unique concept. I think I learned from Firas Sahabi. He was George St. Pierre's coach. You know, it was this. He was talking about how when it comes to evading the forward pressure, you have to be very very light on your feet, and you know usually because you can't really have the cardio to hop around the cage for 25 minutes straight, right? So I think what's really interesting about the pressure of Alex is that he doesn't just do it in bursts. He doesn't just spaz out and go after you and then hold up and then spaz out again. That's something you see in multiple fighters. But then Alex pushes the pace consistently throughout the 5 minutes round, which is crazy in terms of conditioning in the first place. But what's another thing is how you're going to deal with that level of pressure because you're going to have to stay lightly on light footed for the entire 25 minutes, and you can't afford to do that because of your cardio. So then you just get struck instantly. I think what happened with Max could be that his cardio was also wearing out to some extent towards like round 4 or 5 ish,
Yeah,
because Alex that you could really see how dominant Alex was in those last few rounds.
yeah, he was. He got Max down and he held him down.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody's ever done, yeah, because Max,
yeah,
credit to Max, you know, I'm a really big fan of Max's. Apart from Alex, I think he's probably the you know, the best guy in the division. Um, but Alex has got that unique, you know, that grind, you know, and to be a grinder and to keep that grind for 25 minutes, you have to have a really big gas tank, you know, and the idea is to, you know, get the other guy tired, and then you can do what you want to him, you know.
yeah. Because it seems to me like you've probably established who could potentially be the consensus greatest featherweight of all time, and that guy just beat the previous consensus greatest featherweight of all time in Max Holloway. He
Yeah.
beat Aldo twice. He's gone past so many different fighters, and he got beaten twice by your guy. And when it came, and now the crazy thing is, because of Alex's dominance over those past few fights, he's he's put himself so far up. It's like, what's next? And that's exactly what I want to get into now. We recently had the fight, which was a Korean Zombie versus T City. Chang's Korean Zombie versus
You
Brian
lost
T
your
City.
sound?
Uh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So I was talking about Brian Ortega versus the Korean Zombie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that must have been an interesting fight for you guys to watch because it finally gave Alex some form of direction over what's next. So when it comes to stylistically approaching someone like Brian, he's talked about in this whole lead up to his fight week that he's changed up his whole game plan. But to me, to some extent, I don't know if you agree, but in that fight, what I really saw was TCD kept the same fight method, but Chang Sang Jung couldn't really respond to TCT as much, and then he struck that amazing spinning elbow and all of those things. He was dominant, but I don't think the Korean Zombie really showed much.
No, I think the Korean Zombie was a bit flat-footed, and coming back, I think it plays a big part, and I think even with Alex when he fought Max the second time, having no crowd there, it really plays on you because you. Although Alex is a real, like we're really calm before the fight. We're joking, you know. Before Alex's fight with the first fight with Max, we were just about to walk out, and we were sitting there at the door ready, you know, cameras ready, and they said, "Hang on, we've got to wait for a minute." And we start joking and everything, like we always do. We've got a lot of banter in our team, and the lady from the Nevada Sports Commission said, "Do you know you're fighting for the world title?" And we go, "Yeah." the way we are. We're very, and that's the thing with the city kickboxing guys and ourselves. If we didn't get along, we wouldn't be there together. We've got a very strong bond. We all know each other. And we all get along. We go out, we eat, we sleep together. So we've built a good friendship and a good bond. And that as much as we try to keep cool, and Alex is a real cool guy. When we went out there and there's no crowd, there was just no energy to feed off, So I think the Korean Zombie might have suffered from that as well. I don't know, but he looked very flat, because normally he does go forward and put a bit of pressure and waits for the counter, but it seemed like Brian kept beating him to the punch. He stepped forward into the pressure, and instead of Brian just kept beating him to the punch or to the kick or whatever, and he just couldn't get it off. It just seemed like he was stuck in second gear and he couldn't get into third gear.
So when you're trying to deal, like, let's say for example, another fight gets announced, and let's say it's going to be Alex versus Brian. Of course, we saw that in this fight, Brian was putting a bit more of the forward pressure. Do you think that when it comes to Alex being in that cage with him, do you think Brian will be able to keep that level of pressure? What would be an ideal game plan if, like, just spitballing, nothing too revealing? If you could talk about, like, how do you think you would approach a guy like Brian?
I just the same as I don't like to give too much away, but. Brian's a good athlete. He's got incredible jiu-jitsu, but I think Alex is striking is another level above Brian. Even though Brian improved a lot and he used a lot of feints and, showed different looks, I think what Max did to him, I think, Alex is going to do to him again, because Alex is just another level of striking,
Right. Yeah.
Brian's very tough. I think it'll probably go to 5 rounds, just because Brian, or they'll have to stop it because Brian's just going to take too much punishment from Alex's strikes. But I think Alex's level of striking and the way he can adapt and change on the fly. There's only, like I said, there's only a small percentage of guys that are at that level. I'd say him and Izzy are two. There's probably others, but just because I've worked with both of them, I can say that those guys, are not disrespecting, because there's plenty of other good guys out there, but world champions that are out there, and they've got really, really good fight IQs, and if something isn't working, they make it work another way, and they're always looking for the opening, and they don't like to be hit, but they like to hit other people, and that probably sums it up in a way. They normally come out with not much damage, in their fights.
Right. So when it comes to, let's say, of course, from a fan perspective, watching those 5-round slugfests, it's amazing. I'll say it myself. Watching Alex go 25 minutes twice with Max was amazing to watch. And now when it came to, let's say, for example, after the fight, of course, there'll be a lot of injury, wear and tear after the fights. So how do you help build up another fighter after being able to take that much after a fight?
Well, Alex just had a sore shin, really. His shins were a bit sore, and his foot, I think, that was it. He never really, he got a few nicks and bruises on his face, but as a fighter, that's just part and parcel of it, but especially when you've got the little gloves on. But as far as anything else, he was fine, and he actually hurt his shin the week before the fight. He copped a knee, and then he copped an elbow, and just in the same spot, and it was just, it was just unfortunate that he copped that knee, and his shin was a bit bruised, because we really worked on conditioning his shins. But you hit a knee and you hit it hard, you're going to get a bruise, and it was just a week fight, and that's just going to happen. But once the fight starts and adrenaline pumps, you don't feel those sort of things. It's afterwards that you feel them.
Alex also, I think in an interview, he said that Going into the fifth round, like right after the fourth or the starting of the fifth, he broke his left arm. He said that sometime during an exchange he hurt his wrist or something of the sort.
He did. He broke his thumb here.
Okay.
So he broke this bone here, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to working off those injuries, how would you try to deal with other parts of the skills, other techniques, or would you just give the person an exercise to work on the injured part itself?
Look, he's got professional physios, strength and conditioning coaches, and I leave that up to them because that's what they're good at. I just work on his, fight game. So if he can't punch with his right hand, he punches with his left hand, and he's got two other feet. He might not be able to roll, till the hand, after 4 or 5 weeks, the hand, he's got it in a splint. He can roll, but like I said, Alex, I have to put the handbrake on him because he just loves to train. It's not. I haven't got that problem. I've got other lazy fighters, but he's not one of them. He's the opposite. I have to put the handbrake on him a lot because sometimes the less is best.
Yeah, that's true. So, well, let's talk about fight week that's coming up, UFC. We've got Khabib versus Justin Gaethje and Jared Cannonier versus Robert Whittaker. Who do you got for those fights?
Um, I know 3 of the fighters. I've known Rob, since before he was in the UFC, and I'm a big fan of Rob, so I've got to go to Rob. Cannonier, we fought on the same show in Rio, and we were in the same training room together, so we got to know him, and he's a really nice guy, But I have to go with our boy. You've got to support your nation. You've got to support your guy. But they're both really good men, and I just wish them both the best. But I've got to go with Rob.
Yeah.
Same with Justin Gaethje. I've got to meet him and hang out with him, and he's a good guy, an interesting character. I've also met Khabib, but I've only just met him, shook his hand, and had small words with him. And I've got respect for both of those, but I have to go with Justin Gaethje. I feel it's his time, and not taking anything away Khabib because he's an incredible athlete, but I could be wrong. But that's who I'm picking. I'm picking Rob and Gaethje, and good luck to both and good health.
Yeah, Gaethje's got this, crazy mentality coming into the fight. I imagine that you'd have some amount of mental pressure because for a guy like Khabib, he's undefeated, and anyone who's ever tried to do anything against him has lost. The only person who's beat him in a round got choked out in the next round, Connor McGregor. So when it comes to dealing with a guy like Khabib, I find it very interesting how different fighters come up with different game plan, and he just puts a pin in everything at the very start of it. So it'd be very interesting to see how someone with the pressure of Justin Gaethje comes to deal with that fight. He's not released much of a game plan. He's always said he's not going to let him get to the cage. But I want to see how he actually does that because it's much easier to say, as you said, unless you're in the fight, you don't know. So it'd be very interesting to see that fight. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, Michael Johnson also gave Khabib a hard time. I think he even dropped him in the first round, and he didn't, go ahead with it. But Khabib has improved so much, and again, without having to roll or had Khabib, pressure me, it's hard to say what he's like because what he does to people is not normal. You know what I mean? Got there. But again, Gaethje's got a really good gas tank. He's as tough as nails, and he's got wrestling. How he goes against Khabib's wrestling, well, that's yet to be seen. He's also comes from a really good. Gaethje's got a good training camp. He's got some, they've got some really good guys there, and his coaches are very clever. So they'd be working on, worst case scenario, getting in, getting on top. So I can't. that's why I'm going for Gaethje and see how he goes.
Yeah, because I personally I want Gaethje to win, but I think realistically I'm favoring Khabib as opposed to you. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Because what really interested me about Khabib is not just the fact that he can pressure you, but the amount of pressure he can take as well. Because in the Dustin fight, despite the fact that he did dominate it, he was put in a very sticky situation because when he got the takedown, Dustin Poirier, he got this strong guillotine on him. He was up against the cage, so he couldn't get the crank as much as he should have. So Khabib was able to slip out of that after about a minute of staying in that crank. So he got out of it and instantly pushes the dude off him, climbs onto his back and chokes him. So it'll be very interesting to see that fight because Khabib's rear naked choke, it isn't just getting under the neck. He gets on your chin and he just cranks it until you're just in too much pain. That's what happened with Connor. He didn't get a choke, he got a crank.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Without having to have wrestled him or not, because again, Alex is. I've grappled with a lot of people, and Alex is like people tell you grapple with Alex. It's like grappling with a rock. He's just so strong. He's naturally a freak, of strength, and I'm assuming Khabib is the same, and yeah, I've never grappled with Justin Gaethje either, but he seems like a bit of a freak, and let's see how the two freaks go.
You never know because of, like now that you're mentioning Alex being a freak, it just got me thinking the craziest thing would be because you saw Connor do it, so you may as well have a fight where it's a super fight. Alex goes up to lightweight, fights Khabib, double champ. That is what I want to see. Khabib's talking about George St. Pierre going up weight to fight him. Established. I want to see Alex go after Khabib too.
Yeah,
Yeah, because he's yeah.
before, I mean, like they've said that to Alex before, and then people were criticizing him, but I said, man, it's a loaded question. Somebody asked him, how would you go against Khabib? Well, what are you going to say? I'm going to lose? No, I'm going to win, If you're a fighter, you don't go there to lose. You go there to win, and you've got to have that mentality. And look, I'm an old man, but still, if I'm going to go into a fight, I'm not going. I don't go in there thinking I'm going to lose. I've always got it in my head, I'm going to beat this guy. And these guys are young, young studs. They can beat it. They're not scared of anybody. They're not. When people say these guys are scared, none of them are scared. There's no way. Those guys are tough as nails.
Yeah, because I mean, let's look at it realistically here, right? The next potential fight in my eyes for Alex is let me spitball here, is Brian, right? And the next fight for Khabib is Gaethje. Okay, after that, Khabib wants to either retire or go after George St. Pierre, which is very unrealistic because St. Pierre has said he doesn't want to fight. So uh, I'm thinking because the featherweight division lacks so much direction right now, he may as well, take a little bit of chance, a little bit of here and there. Sean Shelby pulls a few strings and they get a good fight in too. So I think what's really interesting about Alex is because I want to know if you agree with me because he's had that experience as a rugby player, getting those tackles in and building up that little bit of a chin for those tackles and those takedowns. Do you think that really helped him become more of a powerhouse that made him that rock that he is?
Um, I think a lot of it's got to do with genetics. Some people are naturally stronger than others. I'm not a big believer in getting your head bashed. My philosophy is not to get hit and hit them. But like I said, that out of Alex is just. I get guys that are heavyweights, and Alex is stronger than them. He's freakishly strong. And then he's got a good gas, got a good chin. That's why he's the world champ. He ticks all the boxes. All the right boxes. And then to top it off, he's got pretty good fight IQ.
Yeah.
And that I said before, where a lot of people doubted Alex. And a lot of people doubted me here too. I've had guys come up to me and go, we didn't believe Alex was going to, get anywhere. He got in the UFC. He was probably going to have one or two fights, lose and get out, you know. But once we got in, you know, Alex and I discussed it. He said, this is just the beginning. We want to get, and Alex said it in his first fight. He said it, I'm going to be the champion. And we discussed it. And our next discussion we had was we're going to build a legacy, you know, and that's our plan there, whether we have to fight KHABIB or whatever. But I think at this stage, he wants to. And look, the fight that we really wanted to have, but, you know, Korean Zombie ruined that, was to fight Edgar. You know, really respect Frankie as a champion. And we wanted to take, you know, beat those champions. And we beat Aldo, we beat Max. You know, Frankie would have been nice to have on the resume, you know. But unfortunately, he's dropped down a weight, and, you know, he's, I don't know, Frankie's not as sharp, and as, you know, Mother Nature's taking care of that. You know, he's getting a bit older, so he's not the Frankie that he used to be. But, you know, the Korean Zombie would have been a good match too, you know, for us. You know, he's got a big following and everything else. And look, there's still a lot of the casual MMA fans still got a little bit of doubt about Alex, you know, but guys that know fighting and know what he's actually doing, know that he is a freak, you know. And you know, if we have to, again, I'd have to discuss it with Alex and the team and see about fighting KHABIB. But, you know, if you know, Dana White wanted to throw us, you know, a bit of extra money, I'm sure we'd do it, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, imagine taking a fight like that. That would be thrilling. From a fan perspective, I'd be thrilled to watch that fight. I want to see how you guys would deal with that too. How both camps would deal with that, actually. And you know, speaking of legacy, I think after getting past people like Chad really was a big stepping stone for Alex to get attention in the division. Alex, and then on Alex getting Chad, and then getting Max twice after Aldo. So that little streak that he built up, that's already probably established both yours and his legacy to an extent already. And
It
on
has.
top, yeah, exactly. So right
Well,
after.
Chad, because, you know, Chad, he's again another sort of fighter that I've was a fan of. Yeah, his style, his, you know, great wrestling, good striking, bringing it all together, and it was probably. I don't get very emotional. I don't when I'm fighting. You know, like, I don't get nervous at all. You know, it's. You know, people say, yeah, you're nervous. I never get nervous about any of the fights or anything. I think somebody has to have a cool head, and that's me, you know. And then even after we beat Max, go, how do you feel? And I go, I don't know. I feel the same, you know. And even after we won the world title, everybody was going, how do you feel? And Alex and I were talking about it, and we go, man, everybody keeps asking me this question, but I don't feel like I'm still Joe Lopez. I haven't grown a cape, or I haven't done anything.
Yeah, because once you get a gold belt, people just go, oh, it's a champion. It's really this crazy mindset that, you know, when you're building up to the championship, no one really notices you, and when you get the title, when you reach the top, then people are, you know, joining onto the hype train. Once it's already reached that station.
Well, I'm like, and it wasn't till I remember. Alex and I were picking up. We'd landed in Sydney after the Chad Mendes fight. We got our bags off the rack, and I looked at him and I said, "We just beat Chad Mendes." Wow, you know, that's the only time that I've ever really felt like some emotion that I've gone, "Wow, we beat this guy," you know. And then after that, I mean, to me, I always look at it and I tell everybody that, to me, it's like we're just playing a sport, you know. It's a sport. So whether we're playing soccer, rugby, football, or whatever you want to call it, we got a job to do after the game. We shake hands, and I like to instill in all my guys that we've got to respect each other, you know. And I've got nothing against these guys doing the smack talk and hating each other, because we're all different. But that's the way I approach it. It's a game, and it's how we play the game, you know. And that's the way I like to instill in the boys and girls, and that way it takes a lot of pressure off them. But if I got a Connor Mcgregor, man, I'd be happy to have Connor McGregor's money, you know. And he's done really, really well, you know, and power to him. But as far as me and what I instill in my guys at my gym, it's all about being respectful, keeping cool, keeping calm, and that's it. But like I said, if I got Connor McGregor, I'd be cheering. You know, I wouldn't like things he does, but you know, he sells the fight and he does it well. And I think, look, if you look back at him, you know, Connor's very respectful in defeat. You know, before the fight, he plays the part so well, you know. So it'd be great to have a person like that, you know.
Yeah, very unique character there. Yeah. So when it came to, like, of course, I imagine the reaction to the after the Max fight. I wonder how you would have realized, oh shit, we just beat Max Holloway. You know, we just won the title. That'd be a crazy reaction too. So when it comes to, like, let's say dealing with a guy like, let's say, imagine if you did fight someone like Connor. Okay, Connor is also known for, you know, his counter punching. Okay, like he's dealt with people who put in a lot of forward pressure. You know, you saw Eddie Alvarez have a go at him. You know,
Yeah.
Eddie, of course, we saw him dismantle him, put his hands behind his back, and then it was crazy. That's just one
Yeah.
amazing striker there.
Well, you can't take anything away. People knock Connor even against KHABIB, but you know he's an incredible athlete. His counter punching, his timing to punching, and his power. You got to respect it. You know, I respect all the fighters. I do. I think, you know, for them just to get out there, and then anybody that makes it into that top 10, they're all champions in a sense. And there's no easy fights in that top 10, you know. It's the biggest promotion in the world. And anyone that gets in that top 10, mate, none of them are easy, you know. I mean, we can all have a bad day, and it does happen, but, you know, you've got to have respect for them, you know.
Yeah, because I think the saddest part about it was, you know, you don't really get the recognition that you really deserve when you're in the top 10 but not the champion. You know, that in case in point would probably be like off the top of my head, Donald Cerrone. You know, he's gotten up to the top of the division on so many occasions. He's gotten big fights on so many occasions, but just in the nick of time, like just when everything was about to take a turn for the better, he lost the fight. You know,
Yes.
which brings me to another fight that was, you know, Connor and Cowboy. What do you think about those interesting shoulder strikes, you know, coming off the clinch and up, like it broke Cowboy's nose?
Yeah. I think you just caught, yeah, my take on it, you know, Cowboy's always been a little bit of a slow starter, unless somebody gets in his head, like when that Hernandez kid, rubbished him and called him an old man, and he came out there all guns a blazing. I think Connor used a bit of psychology and showed a lot of respect to it, and then Connor got,
Yeah, the king of mind games, isn't it?
yeah, and power to Connor for that. You know, that was clever. He'd do it that way. If it was intentional or unintentional, I thought, man, that was clever. Those shoulders, that's nothing new, you know. That's been around, and a few people had asked me, and I went, mate, you look at a lot of even the first UFCs, you know, in the first 10, I think, I can't remember. I pointed it out to someone after that fight, but my mind's going. It's nothing new. It's been around for a long time, you know, and he used it and it worked, you know, whether he'd been practicing or whether, you know, Connor's got a lot of mongrel in him, and you know, if I can't punch you, well, I'm going to hit you with my shoulder, you know, like Connor just wants to hurt you, you know, and again, that's
those giant shoulder, like little knives striking and shanking you. So when also I wanted to, like, if you don't mind, there was a very intricate situation with, like, you know, the casuals of MMA. And I'm kicking myself for asking you this. After the two Max fights, there was a giant group of people. Not me, I'm not one of them, but there was a lot of people, you know, going that, you know, I felt that, you know, rounds 1, 2, 3, Max took the fight, and like in certain people saying that, you know, Max was a bit more dominant, a bit more consistently dominant, and Alex just passed out and got the victory. So when it comes to dealing with the kind of animosity that you faced after that, did anyone really come up to you and say, hey, screw you, man, you didn't win the fight? Did you ever deal with anything like that?
no. Look, I'm not much into social media. You know, I think if people do, but again, I don't really. I just worry about what I'm doing. I don't really care what everybody else is doing. And look, it can bring people down, you know, if you get into, you know, worrying about what everybody else is doing. I just worry about what I'm doing and what we're doing, you know. With Alex, I can't answer for Alex, but for me, it didn't. No one approached me. I mean, we were stuck in a hotel room for 2 weeks when we got back, and then, but after that, no one said anything to me. And like I said, I don't go and read the social media things. I couldn't be bothered, you know. I got better things to do than get into it. I like watching, you know, jiu-jitsu videos and fight videos and all that sort of stuff. And I do it as a necessity, but, you know, it's not me, you know.
Yeah, because it's rather interesting when you see people like, there's there's three different characters I see when it comes to social media, right? One is the whole Conor McGregor, Henry Cejudo types who just go for the banter, just they call different people out, say different stuff to different
Yeah.
people. Ali Abdelaziz, a manager going after fighters, you know, and then you have those people who just do it for the response and do it for the banter. You got Darren Till too. He's just responding to the criticism and just using it for the jokes. And the third type, which is those who just lay off of it and just stay away from social media, like you see George St. Pierre, and he's just off of it, and he barely even checks it. And each of these three segments, they all have equal levels of success, and it really, I really wonder, because the amount of mental strength when it comes to any of those things, it's rather unique, you know, dealing with those people like that.
Yeah, well, it is, you know, and it's got to be your thing, you know. Like I said, to me, I guess I'm older than a lot of these guys, and I've got better things to do in my life. I find it really, really. In fact, I pay somebody to do most of my social media because I couldn't be bothered with it, and but like. The advantage of it is that, you know, guys like Connor McGregor and that, he's made a lot of money from it, you know.
Yeah.
But he does it well. He plays the evil guy and he plays it well. Henry Cejudo, he probably plays it. You know, they call him the king of cringe, and yeah, people look at him as a joke, you know. But look. I've met Henry after he's written these things, and he's so respectful and so nice, and he's just doing it to get attention, you know. Same as the Korean Zombie, you know. We were in just before we got locked down. We were up there at Izzy's fight, and we were walking back, and I didn't even recognize Korean Zombie. He had glasses on, and he was with a group of people, and honestly, he looked like a computer nerdy guy, and everybody. His group was looking at Alex and I, and Alex looked at him and went, "Oh, how you going?" And he came over and he apologized to Alex about the banter and shook hands. And then I go to Alex, "Who was that guy?" And he goes, "That's the Korean Zombie." And I went, "Really?" I didn't even recognize him because he had glasses on, dressed in a real nerdy looking shirt, and he just looked like a normal Asian computer type guy, you know. No disrespect to them, but he didn't look like a fighter, you know. Yeah. He's there, but again, some of these guys have to do that to sell the fights, and I think it sort of hurt him, his chances with that. I don't know his manager's name, because he was sitting behind me, and when Brian Ortega slapped him, that what is he, he's I think it's his manager, but he's a rapper or something in Korea.
Was it his translator you're talking about? Because that's who I think Brian slapped.
Yeah, well, I think he's a rapper. Yeah, he's a Korean rapper, and he's I think he helps with his managing and his social media. I think, you know, he might have wrecked his chance of getting the title shot, in a sense, you know, because we were looking for someone after Max, and we could have been the Zombie and Alex, you know, the next shot. But because he had that beef with Brian, everybody wanted to see that fight, you know. And now he's not going to get that chance, you know, unless he gets another, you know, unless he fights, you know, Khabib, or, you know, Max fights Khabib, and, you know, there's a lot of people. You know, you got Catter in there as well. There's a few, and there's I forget. There's another guy. I forget his name. Edward, not Edward Scum, because he's an English guy, but I forget his name. He's in the top 10 anyway. All these guys, you know, even Danny Iggy, you know, although he lost, he's, you know, all those guys are good. Like I said, anybody in that top 10 is good, you know, and we don't take them lightly. But I think Alex is a one level above them all, you know.
Yeah, there's Yair Rodriguez too. It's crazy the amount of people in that division. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, him like sparking that beef with another guy really messed with his chances towards the title, because I'm pretty sure Alex has been looking for a fight for a while now. For a guy like Alex, you always want to have a fight.
Well, like I said, we wanted to fight, you know, like in December. We really wanted to fight, but, you know, and we had our hearts set on it. It wasn't until I think Alex's wife pointed out that if you fight in December, that means you're going to be in lockdown over Christmas and December. Yeah. And then, you know, our other guys, you know, like Brad Riddell and Eugene, that means they're going to be stuck in huge. And you know, Brad's just going to start a family. You know, Alex has got young kids. You know, I've got a family. Eugene's got a family. You know, he's got young kids as well. And, you know, it's hard, you know,
a lot of things to consider. Yeah.
2 weeks after you got to be in lockdown, and yeah, and especially around that Christmas time, you know, and you've got little kids, you really want to spend Christmas with, you know, your kids. You know, you only get so many of them before they grow up and don't want to spend them with you, so you got to be with them, you know.
Yeah, so when it came to, like, let's say for example, like now that we've actually established that, you know, that you as a trainer, that over the years you have so much experience, that, you know, the amount that you've developed over so many different fights, you've dealt with amateurs, pros, champions, and when you reach that caliber as a coach, I can only ask you, like, let's say for example there's a new coach coming up, and there's newer camps coming up, and if you were to, let's say for example, give them a piece of advice from the giant book of Joe Lopez, like what would you tell these people, like, you know, in terms of like what would you, like a pointer, so to say?
Never stop wanting to learn. You always got to, you I think if you think that you know it all, you've already lost. So I think, you know, you've always got to be the student, because there's always something new to learn. And like I said to you earlier, everybody's different. So, you know, you can't just think of yourself how you would approach it. Like I put input in, I go, this is what I like to do, you know, and this is how I do it. But you can also do it this way and that way, and have different options. And you know, I'll say this in class all the time. I'll go, you know, you might not want to use what I'm showing you, but at least you've seen it. And if somebody tries it on you, you know what they're doing. It's not going to surprise you. So you've got to keep learning, you know. And I'm still learning, like I said it from the beginning, you know. And that's what's kept me in the sport for such a long time, is that I enjoy learning, and I want to keep learning, you know, as long as I can. You know, I just wish my body was, you know, 30 years younger and I knew what I did now, and then I'd be deadly, you know.
Yeah, anyone with that level of experience would be deadly. I think the closest we ever got to seeing that was George St. Pierre when he came back to fight Bisping. That was probably the best possible example of it. And you know, you got so many different people. I mean, look at someone like, off the top of my head, Teddy Atlas. You know, Teddy Atlas, he's considered the Atlas of boxing. So imagine if he got back in the ring and was able to lace up gloves. Oh, that'd be amazing.
You know, Freddie Roach, you know, who trains with George St. Pierre.
Yeah.
And you know, I hope George St. Pierre doesn't go and have that fight. You know, I think sometimes these guys carry on later. Long. I mean, and they lose their legacy, you know. Yeah, but if they're older guys, I think they should be fighting other older guys, you know. Like, I thought Bisping and George St. Pierre was a good matchup, because those guys had done a lot of rounds in there. And look, your body, your body's wearing out. It's a machine. The best machine in the world, but it's like with anything. You can only push it so many times before things start breaking.
Yeah.
And and I was so happy that Bisping, because I've been a big fan of Bisping. And I was so happy that he beat and knocked out Luke Rockhold. He's not one of my favourites, but I do like Bisping. A lot of people don't, but I like the way he banters. I like his personality, and he's a fighter. And for him to win that I was really happy for him. But then I think it got to his head, and he kept wanting to fight. Where I think he should have just put held the belt up. I got what I wanted and went out as a champion. Which is very, very people to do. And George,
you got to feel for people like Bisping. He wanted to it's very admirable, like how after the fight he was a class act, admitted, but after that he instantly took that fight with Kelvin, and then there wasn't a lot of hype about it. But then what most people don't know is that he got knocked out cold, and right after that fight, and not just the fact that it's a guy with that much of a legacy, but to see anyone like that coming after such a huge fight, getting knocked out when you actually think that they should be able to tune up. Yeah, I felt to some extent Michael may have underestimated Kelvin or didn't train enough.
Well, look, I think as you're an up and coming fighter, you're hungry, and after a while, your hunger isn't there as much, and if you don't train as much, or you let things go, and like you're younger, you might not go out and drink. You might stay at home and do all the 1% of things. Eat right, do everything right. But when you've done it for so long, you go, I can afford to go out for a few drinks with my friends. Hey, I can do this. I can do that. Look, I'm just talking hypothetically.
Yeah.
And the same, and getting away off MMA, but the boxing on the weekend where, Lopez beat
Lomachenko.
And people say he's old, and this because the young guy. Well, he should have thought of that before he took the fight. He should have just maybe
left with the 3 belts. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a lot of money, you got a lot of fame. Rest on your laurels.
Yeah.
But look, when you've got a lot of people, especially with social media, sending you messages and telling you how good you are and you'll beat him and you're this and you're that. It's so easy to get caught up in it, and I've seen it with a lot of fighters, and that's what Bisping is one of them, I think at the end of the day, they're fighters. They're not scared to fight, and they love fighting. But there's a time where you can sort of go, okay, I've done that. And that's where I think George St. Pierre is a class act, where he left as a champion and he's moved on. And getting back to what we're saying, these guys like, say, Clay, Guida and BJ Penn, I thought that was a good fight. They're guys that have been around for a while, but they're a little bit past their prime, but they're still good athletes and they still put on a show and they can fight together. It was sort of heartbreaking. I know Peter Yan and Aldo. The way destroyed him. Breaking. Again, Aldo was such a champion and he held on to that belt for such a long time, and then the young gun came in and he beat the old dog. And that's it. I said to you before, Mother Nature starts taking its toll on your body. You can't fight it.
Yeah, that's exactly why I think George wouldn't want to some extent, take that fight with KHABIB, because it's more for him to lose, because he's already established himself. Even if he doesn't take that fight, he's established himself as a GOAT. Leaving the business for 10 years, coming back, beating the king in a whole new division. That no one can do that. No one else has done that. And on another level, like even with the whole Peter Yan situation, Peter Yan, Davis and Figueiredo, taking out so many, like the old dogs getting out of the game now. I think probably would be the best thing at this point would probably be, people like Brad Pickett and all of these guys who've gone out of the divisions, probably them coming back. I think the best fight would be someone like Uriah Faber versus Frankie Edgar, or someone like Benavidez versus Pickett. Because all of these guys went out to the new guys coming in. So maybe get those guys to have another bout would
Well,
be cool.
well, that's the way I look at it. You know, that these guys that have been in there for a while, they should be just fighting guys that have been in there just as long, and keep away from the new dogs. So the old dogs fight the old dogs, and the new dogs fight the new dogs. You know,
Yeah.
because they're ruining their legacy. And I mean, some people still want to watch them fight, but I think you got the young dog who's hungry, and you got the old dog who's he's been in a lot of wars, and his body's not moving as good as it used to, and it does take a toll on the body, and they can't train at that same level as the new young guy, who hasn't copped all hasn't had his arm twisted, hasn't hurt his leg, hasn't twisted his knee, it all adds up, And I can't see any fighter that's fighting at that level, every one of them comes in with some sort of little niggling injury, they all do, because you're playing a contact sport, and you just have to move a little bit wrong and boom, you get hurt.
Yeah, I mean, you even saw like the best example for like old time sake kind of fights was probably when I think it was during the lockdown season itself. I think Minotauro, or was it? Yeah, I think Nogueira had his fight with I think it was Rua or Teixeira. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah,
Yeah,
his last fight was probably the
yeah.
trilogy
Show
fight. Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, look, even to an extent, Anderson Silva, who was the GOAT there, and you can't take that away from him. When he fought
yeah.
Cannonier, it broke his leg, Oh, that to me, that was heartbreaking to see that happen to him, Oh,
Anderson, yeah.
and he walked past me, and they had to carry him out, It was, to me, it was heartbreaking to see him, 5 years ago, no one could touch him, and now now he's got two legs that are broken, twice his
Yeah, I
legs.
think everything all fell when Chris Weidman caught him in the first fight with those
Yeah,
when he was turning back, and then he caught him like right in the jaw, and then dropped
yeah,
him. And then in the second fight, his leg broke, and then in the Cannonier fight, his leg broke again. And
yeah,
then he had the Izzy fight. Oh, it's such an unfortunate situation.
yeah, it is. I really enjoyed the Izzy Spider fight. It was Anderson Silva fight. It was such a lot of people thought it was boring. For me, it was so technical. It
Yeah,
was,
exactly.
like a lot of people ditched Izzy and Anderson Silva about that fight. But to me, it was
A very
you
smart
can appreciate
approach. Yeah.
good striking. That was next level stuff,
Yeah, because even when it came to like, let's say for example, coming up next, which is I think the fight between Uriah Hall and Anderson Silva. That's a fight that's coming up in like sometime soon. I think it's going to be on the 1st of November. Uh,
Yeah,
Anderson and Uriah have a very similar fight style as well. Uriah also has that crazy knockout back in, I think, the when he was in Tough.
yeah,
Yeah, all of that coming together. I think these are like the fights that should be cool to see. Even despite the fact that this is still old dog, new dog to some extent, it's still one of those legacy type fights for both the fighters. So it'd be pretty cool to see.
yeah. It is because like you said, it's they're both very similar styles, and yeah, it'd be good to see as to opposed to seeing Anderson Silva go against Cannonier, where the guy's just a young brute, has got very powerful man, and he gets hit, he's going to get hurt.
Yeah, because it really puts things into perspective when a guy who's beaten people like Belfort, beaten people like Bonner, Chael Sonnen, and it's Forrest Griffin. Both Griffin and Bonner were in that crazy fight that really got attention to UFC in the first place. So
Once Terry took that late notice fight against Daniel Cormier, you know what I mean?
yeah, exactly.
Like, you got to take your hat off to him. He's a warrior.
Yeah. Well, that was probably one of it's crazy how these fighters just come back and just dominate the division. Like for something like what George St. Pierre did. I'm a bit of a fan for St. Pierre myself,
Yeah.
and yeah. So I think on that note, well, it's been a pleasure, Joe. It was amazing chatting with you, and I think to some level, I am not just like me personally, I like doing this to get to know other people, but this was more than just that. I've been a fan of MMA for a while. I've watched actually Volkanovski. My brother and I, we've always had these friendly bets over Alex's fights because we saw that first fight where he said that I'm gonna be the champion. We saw the way he said it, and yeah, man, it's seeing as how he's like come up, taking the division over. This was just kind of like a dream come true for me too. So thank you for doing this again.
Oh no, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. On that note, thank you everyone for watching, and that's what that was. Thank you, Joe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Okay, thank you. Bye.